Cameron Whitmore, born July 8, 2004. Today's feature is a player I really believed in coming into the NBA. From the moment Cam Whitmore entered the draft process, he looked like the perfect modern wing. Strong frame, confident scoring instincts, and explosive athleticism, along with an edge that makes you feel like a young player who belongs on the big stage. Early flashes only added to that belief, making it feel like his rise was inevitable. But as time passes, the gap between expectation and reality is slowly starting to grow. He's still only 21 years old, younger than most college seniors, so his story isn't finished by a long shot. In the right situation, things can still change, but as of right now, for these reasons, his growth is being stunted. What happened? Let's talk about it. Salute to everyone that's requested this video. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Cam Whitmore is a 6'7" wing from Odenton, Maryland, known for his strength, explosiveness, and downhill scoring ability. He attended Archbishop Spalding High School in Severn, where he developed into one of the top prospects in the country, earning McDonald's All-American honors and finishing as a consensus 5-star recruit. Whitmore also built his reputation internationally, winning MVP honors while helping Team USA capture gold at the 2022 FIBA Under-18 Americas Championships, a performance that boosted his status as a projected lottery pick. He chose Villanova over schools like Maryland and North Carolina. At Villanova, he averaged 12.5 points and 5.3 rebounds per game as a freshman, despite missing the beginning of the season with a thumb injury that slowed his early rhythm. Even in limited time, his powerful drives, physical defense, and confident scoring flashes stood out to scouts. Many evaluators believed his long-term upside was higher than his production showed, especially given Villanova's structured system. Entering the 2023 NBA Draft, Whitmore was widely projected as a top 10 talent and one of the most physically gifted wings in his class. However, concerns about injuries and long-term development reportedly caused teams to hesitate, leading to one of the most surprising draft night slides when he fell to the Houston Rockets with the 20th overall pick, instantly shifting the expectations around his early NBA rise. Stunt number 1, the draft night slide. Coming into the 2023 NBA Draft, Cam Whitmore wasn't viewed as a late first-round project. He was seen as a potential lottery cornerstone. For most of the pre-draft process, his name lived comfortably inside the top 10. Scouts loved the physical tools, an NBA-ready body, explosive first step, and the kind of fearless scoring mentality that can translate quickly to the next level. Not to mention the allure of being a coveted one and done. But as draft night approached, whispers started to grow louder. Concerns about long-term health evaluations, decision-making, and how his game would fit into structured offenses began to shift the narrative behind the scenes. Then came the slide. One pick after another passed, and what was supposed to be a celebratory moment turned into one of the most talked about storylines of the night. Falling to 20th overall changed more than just where he landed, it changed perception. Instead of entering the league as a highly invested in franchise piece on a team with the exact carved out space for him, Whitmore came in labeled as a steal but also a question mark. That label matters more than people realize, because draft position often dictates patience, opportunity, and how quickly a team is willing to live through mistakes. Landing in Houston added another layer to the situation. The Rockets were already deep into a rebuild, filled with young guards and wings all trying to prove themselves at the same time. They also had already drafted Jalen Green 2nd overall 2 years prior, and were heavily invested into his development, which Green was, and on time. Rather than stepping into a clear developmental lane, Whitmore entered a crowded environment where touches, minutes, and defined roles weren't guaranteed. For a young scorer whose confidence is tied to rhythm and opportunity, that kind of uncertainty can slow early momentum. The talent was still obvious and the flashes were real, but the draft slide shifted expectations from future star to prove it first. And from the very beginning, that shift quietly became the first sign that his growth might not follow the smooth path many once predicted. Stunt number 2, development lost in a crowded rebuild. Sliding in the draft is one thing, but then sliding to a team that weren't necessarily a good fit made things even worse. As mentioned, the Rockets were already heavily invested in Jalen Green as a primary scoring guard, which they should have been because he was an electric borderline superstar. I still think they should have kept him and kept building around him, while Jabari Smith Jr., another recent top pick, was still developing into his role. Then, in that same 2023 draft, Houston selected Amen Thompson 3rd overall, instantly adding another high-priority prospect who needed the ball, patience, and long-term attention. Suddenly, a team that never looked like a perfect landing spot for a young scorer became one of the most crowded development situations in the league. That's 4 young guys at the same position fighting for 2 spots. Instead of walking into a clearly defined role, Cam Whitmore entered a rotation filled with lottery talent, all trying to establish themselves at once. Every possession came with competition, and every lineup carried long-term implications for the franchise's rebuild. For a young wing whose game relies heavily on rhythm, downhill pressure, and confidence, inconsistent minutes made it difficult to rebuild momentum. There were flashes, powerful drives, athletic finishes, and scoring bursts that hinted at his upside, but they often came in short windows rather than sustained opportunities. At the same time, the organization began shifting toward a more structured identity. Emphasis on defense, spacing, and decision-making meant shorter leashes for players still learning how to impact winning beyond scoring. That shift didn't eliminate Whitmore's talent, but it limited the margin for mistakes that many young scorers need early in their careers. With multiple lottery picks developing simultaneously, patience had to be divided, and not every prospect could grow at the same pace. The result wasn't a lack of ability, it was a lack of space. In a rebuild built around several young priorities at once, Whitmore's development often felt secondary, leading his growth caught between flashing promise and an environment that never had the space and opportunity for him to find a consistent rhythm. Stunt number 3, a fresh start interrupted. Just when it felt like a new opportunity could reset the narrative, Cam Whitmore's move to Washington introduced another unexpected obstacle. After leaving a crowded situation in Houston, one he clearly wasn't developing in, even at one point being sent to the G League just for minutes, the change of scenery looked like a chance for a more defined role on a rebuilding roster. Washington needed athletic wings, scoring punch, and young players willing to grow through mistakes, even though that roster was another crowded situation. On paper though, the fit made sense. Early flashes showed the same physical tools that made him a coveted prospect: strong downhill drives, confident scoring instincts, and the kind of energy that could shift momentum in short bursts. But momentum never had time to fully build. A deep vein thrombosis or blood clot in his right shoulder forced Whitmore off the floor, stopping what was supposed to be a developmental reset before it could take shape. For any young player, missing extended time is difficult, but for someone still trying to establish consistency and trust within a new system, the pause can feel even heavier. Developing in the NBA often depends on repetition, learning rotations, understanding spacing, building chemistry, and injuries or health issues can interrupt that process at the worst possible time. The timing mattered just as much as the setback itself. Washington was still evaluating its young core and deciding who fit into the long-term vision, and extended time away from the court made it harder for Whitmore to carve out a clear identity within the group. Instead of using a fresh start to build momentum, the season became more about recovery than growth after he was sat down for the remainder of 25-26. None of this erases the potential that once made him a projected lottery pick, but when early expectations collide with crowded situations, shifting roles, and untimely setbacks, progress doesn't always follow a straight line, and for Whitmore, the road to finding stability has remained far more complicated than anyone predicted on draft night. All in all, Cam Whitmore's story isn't about a lack of talent, it's about timing, momentum, and fit not lining up the way many expected. From a surprising draft night slide to entering one of the most crowded young cores in the league, his path was never as clear as his potential suggested. Just when a fresh start in Washington looked like a chance to reset everything, a serious injury forced him off the court again, slowing a development process that already felt stop and go. Still, at just 21 years old, the door isn't closed. The physical tools are still there, and the flashes of what he can become still haven't disappeared. He's currently injured, so he can use this opportunity to develop his mental by watching lots of film, learning the game from that standpoint until he's ready to return physically, because when he does come back, it'll be make or break from there on. I do like him as a player, so hopefully he can return even better and earn the opportunities his talent deserves. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth is currently being stunted. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.